was not given a free hand and rendered a lame duck, Chairman says Cyrus Mistry in an explosive 5-page letter to the Tata Sons board. CNBC-TV18 is in possession of the letter. Mistry warns that the Tata Group will need an $18 billion write-down, spots Tata Steel, Indian hotels, passenger vehicle business of Tata Motors and the telecommunications subsidiary as the legacy hotspots. Tata Nano project was kept alive due to emotional reasons, says Cyrus Mistry, adds that the only turnaround strategy was to shut it down. Mistry says Tata Steel's European business is facing a potential write-down of a whopping $10 billion, says he cannot believe that he was removed on the grounds of non-performance. Mistry calls the strategy of Indian hotels flawed, says the Sea Rock acquisition happened at a highly inflated price. Well, this is the big story that we've been tracking. I was lame duck and I was not given a free hand. That's the explosive 5-page letter written by Cyrus Mistry to the Tata Sons board in possession with CNBC-TV18. The letter seems to bear it all. Mistry was at Bombay House today but remained tight-lipped in front of an army of reporters who were camped outside. Our battery of reporters and special guests join us now to decode the letter written by Cyrus Mistry to the Tata Sons board. Lata joins us with more details from that letter, which of course runs into 5 pages. Also with us, Prashant Nair, Ronojoy Banerjee and Nisha Podar, and we'll get to our guests in just a second. But Lata, let me come to you. It's a 5-page letter, several allegations being made by Cyrus Mistry, dealing with individual companies of the Tata Group, and very clearly they're identifying the legacy hotspots and very clearly saying that, look, I was promised a free hand, I didn't get one.
Well, actually, I'd concentrate more on that. Prashant and Ron are going to give you the company-wise details that are identified in this letter. But basically, he says it was a breach of faith with him. In the first place, he says, I didn't want to join. I was running my own business and it was doing well. But both Lord Bhattacharya and Ratan Tata approached him, and when he declined, they started looking for other people. And when they went back to him saying that, you know, he was still the best candidate they had, it was only then that after he consulted his family and others taking on board the larger interest of the Tata Group, he agreed to join, is what he says. So he was a reluctant joinee, and on the second round. Also, he says that, and this is the most operational sentence, prior to my appointment, I was assured I would be given a free hand. The previous chairman was to step back and be available for advice and guidance when needed. After my appointment, the articles of association were modified, changing the rules of engagement between the trust board, the chairman and the operating company. So clearly what he's saying is that he was almost cheated. He was promised independence and that was not given. And then he goes on quoting chapter and verse about how the board was treated so lightly by Ratan Tata, who turned out to be a rival center of power. He refers to one instance where the board was kept waiting for about an hour when 2 of the directors, Noria and Vijay Singh, went out to speak and to Ratan Tata to reach out to him for some important decision. Now this, according to Cyrus, also throws the whole issues open to, you know, insider trading, leakage of information. So his charges are mainly this.
Sure.
The article of association was changed to my disadvantage. As well, Ratan Tata frequently was a rival source of power and interfered in decisions, presented him with fait accompli.
You're absolutely right, Lata, but to be fair, these are allegations that Cyrus Mistry has leveled in this 5-page letter against Ratan Tata and the Tata Sons board. But this also begs the question, and we put that question to VR Mehta, if they'd ever heard from, Cyrus Mistry, whether he had raised the issue of his powers being curtailed, of not being given a free hand. The question also is, why didn't Cyrus Mistry take this matter to the board? Or if he did, perhaps we will find out in due course. But let me go across to Ronojoy because Cyrus Mistry has clearly talked about Tata Motors and specifically about the Tata Nano project. Now, questions have been raised about why keep the Nano alive. It's doing virtually nothing for Tata Motors in terms of sales. In fact, if you go by what Cyrus Mistry says, Ron, it's a significant loss that Tata Motors has to bear just to keep the Nano project alive.
Absolutely, Shireen. In fact, having covered the company for so many years, I can tell you that this is really not a shocking revelation, by Cyrus Mistry, because what he's essentially done is confirm the fears and the views that have been shaping up within the company, among suppliers, dealers for a long time, that why on earth are we keeping the Nano project alive? Because if you look at the monthly sales numbers, it's selling 600, 700 units a month. In fact, this year alone, so far in the first 6 months, overall sales volumes is down 60% on a low base. So clearly there is no business rationale for keeping the Nano project alive. And if I were to come and highlight the operative part in the letter about the Nano project, Mr. Mistry says that the Nano product development concept called for a car below 1 lakh rupees, but the costs were always above this. This product has consistently lost money, peaking, as you said, Shireen, at 1,000 crore rupees. And as there is no clear sign of profitability for the Nano, any turnaround for the company requires the Nano to be shut down. Emotional reasons alone, again, something that has been long rumored within the company. He again confirms it. Emotional reasons alone have kept us away from the crucial decision of actually shutting down the Nano. And this is where, Cyrus Mistry goes beyond just the business considerations. He says that there might be even other reasons for keeping the Nano project alive, alleging that the Nano was sort of, continued in production. That is because that shutting down the Nano product would have meant stopping the supply of Nano gliders to a company, to an electric company in which Ratan Tata has a direct stake. So clearly, a lot of reasons being, given. But again, nobody is really surprised by this revelation, Shireen.
But that revelation as far as the electric car company is a surprising one, and we haven't heard that before. But again, this is an allegation made by Cyrus Mistry in that letter. Let me very quickly go across and bring in an external voice. Joining us, of course, is Rajiv Kumar. He's been with us on this story. Mr. Kumar, you were very critical in your commentary on how this is played out. In light of today's developments, in light of the revelations that Cyrus Mistry makes in his 5-page letter to the Tata Sons board, what is your reaction?
My reaction, Shireen, to this is that such a letter, I hope Cyrus Mistry had written a year earlier, or had taken up these issues with the board, up front. Because I think what's happened here is that professionalism has got mixed up with family and emotions and sentiments, which is always a bad mixture.
Yeah.
And I think what should have happened very clearly is that if he had these legacy issues, he should have brought up, with the board, and then defended, or no, not defended, then actually designed with the board's help his own deliverables on all of this. Because at the moment, the way it looks is that it is all a matter of, sort of crying, spilt milk.
Yeah.
And he's just, he's seeming to be on a defensive when he may not have been if he had done this, well in time. And I'm afraid he's in some sense missed the boat on this one.
Well, Mr. Rajiv Kumar, just to play Mr. Mistry's advocate, and that is a position I've just given myself, not appointed really, what was the guarantee that Mr. Mistry would get a kind ear? Here, there seems to be a fundamental conflict of interest. The trusts are 66% owners of Tata Sons, and their head is Mr. Ratan Tata. He did not have a problem when he was chairman of Tata Sons, because chairman of Tata Sons was chairman of the big shareholder, the Tata Trusts. In this case, the chairman of Tata Sons is not the chairman of the majority shareholder. So would he have even got a year?
He would have had to force himself to get the year. This is a classic principal agency problem. Mr. Cyrus Mistry is the agent of the principal shareholders, of which there are two that we know, and one in which he has substantial stake. So if he had actually, played his role as a professional manager, the first thing actually it can go even further back. I mean, if you look at the U.S. style of management, etc., the CEO who's appointed has a whole set of key deliverables against which his variable pay is measured. you know, and that's what the contract between the shareholders and the principal and the CEO. And you know, and if either side breaches that contract or doesn't live up to it, you know, there are penalties and payments to be made. You know, so now here is a case where, of course, it was like, you know, oh, we are all friends, family, community, etc. Let's get on board.
Yeah.
And there's a patriarch sort of, you know, figure in RNT which is there. So Mistry took it up, knowing full well that he's overshadowed by a patriarch. But then he chose not to, in some sense, communicate with the patriarch. So he's left himself, you know, neither here nor there, and he's therefore which is the sort of, you know, I mean, as you know, I've been rather critical of the, you know, lack of good corporate governance in this case. But now with this letter coming out today from Mr. Mistry, I think he just should have done all of this much ahead of time. He would have had to take the board on. He would have to take the board on, you know, on his side, and maybe even go public against that. Look, this is the legacy issue that I'm strapped with. I've not got the space, and therefore I can't do what I want to do.
You're absolutely right. In fact, Mr. Kumar, that was the very first question that I raised at the start of the show. But in exactly 30 seconds, my final question to you. You know, we've been talking about reputational loss, damage to credibility. But in light of today's developments now, it looks like this is going to get uglier. It's going to get more acrimonious, perhaps head to the courtroom. What is this now going to mean as far as the Tata Group and individual Tata Group companies are concerned from an investor's perspective, specifically from an FII perspective, if I could ask you that?
Well, I think, you know, somebody has written, I think Mr. Swaminathan today, that this is a body blow to Tata's image and reputation, which had been going down for a while because of all the sorts of things that Mr. Mistry has written in his letter. And I think it is now actually incumbent on the Tata board to try and minimize the damage and to, in some sense, patch up with Mr. Mistry. He's still on their board. They should not do things like removing his interviews from their website and writing to the other companies to remove the directors, etc. I mean, they should not make it personal. I mean, Mr. Ratan Tata and his very eminent board members must now recognize that this is, you know, they have to handle it with much greater professionalism than what they have done so far. And if it becomes a personal, you know, ego battle, then of course it will hurt Tata's image. You know, at no end. I mean, and I hope that doesn't happen.
Sure. Well, thank you very much for raising those pertinent issues. Rajiv Kumar, always a pleasure speaking with you. Let's go across now to Prashant Nair, our colleague. He's been also going over the letter. Prashant, Ron was talking about Tata Motors and the Nano project in specific, but another pain point that Cyrus Mistry talks about is Tata Steel's European business, and of course that continues now to be mired in uncertainty. Take us through what he says in that letter about Tata Steel.
Shireen, verbatim, this is what he says in the letter, and I quote, "The European steel business faced potential impairments in excess of $10 billion, only some of which have been taken as of date," which essentially means that there might be more to come in terms of write-downs. Remember, I mean, the acquisition was made in the heydays of the steel cycle. I mean, you could almost say that the acquisition, with the benefit of hindsight, was made at the top of the cycle. And the argument which many are making now is that, well, you know, is the worst already behind? Are you now selling at the bottom? You know, Mr. Mistry essentially is making his point very strongly, saying that the total write-down is could be 10 billion, potentially 10 billion. Only part of it has been taken on board so far. You know, we did some number crunching as well, and the numbers are pretty clear. 20% of Tata Group's capital employed is in a company, that is Tata Steel, which last year, that is financial year 16, lost in excess of 10,000 crores. Now, you know, one can make equally strong arguments, of course, about whether it was the right decision to go ahead and divest holdings. It entirely depends on your view. If Mr. Mistry, in a way, thought that this is unlike any other sort of, you know, steel cycle that we've seen so far, that the largest consumer, for example, China, is in structural problems, then he was in an, you know, he could have very strongly made the argument that, well, it makes sense to sell, take the loss and get out. Of course, I mean, on the other side, you could make the other argument as well, that to sell at the bottom is not the right strategy. This is, of course, one of the topics or companies, issues which has been poured over very minutely by investors as well. And I think what happens here next will be very, very crucial as well. Will there be a change of plan, strategy with regards to the UK business?
Yeah. And that is the big question that needs answering. We have reached out to Tata Steel asking if there is going to be a pause, because that is what, for instance, the union at the UK operations are demanding. They want to deal with Ratan Tata directly, and that's a question that we've posed to Tata Steel. But joining us now is Mr. Harsh Mariwala, the chairman of Marico. Sir, appreciate you joining us. You know, when we last spoke, a lot of it was in the realm of conjecture and speculation. And today, we do have Cyrus Mistry's 5-page letter, which details the problems, whether it was strategic differences, management style, and so on and so forth. Do you believe that, you know, while Cyrus Mistry, if you a plain reading of the letter, may come across as the victim, should have tried harder to get his case heard, should have tried harder to take his issues with several strategic decisions that he claims were made because of Mr. Tata's interference to the board?
Yeah. So what do you want me to answer? Basically, I think this is his side of the story.
So
I don't know what is the Tata side of the story.
Yes. We're still awaiting the Tata side of the story, but do you believe this victim card that seems to be played out here through this letter is going to wash?
So I don't know whether it's called a victim unless I know the Tata story. Difficult for me to answer that question. But let me answer, first of all, a few other things which at least came to my mind, you know. I think when Cyrus was appointed, I don't know to what extent was there clarity in terms of to what extent does he have to inform Mr. Ratan Tata and when does he have to go to him to get clearances. And I think it was a little vague from whatever I can make out, and that's what has caused the real confusion, you know. So if there's a difference in perception in terms of when do I need to go to him to get clearances, then the expectations are one, and you know, he may be thinking that, okay, I don't have to do that much, you know. And I think that may have led to a series of issues into relationship. But even if that happens, you know, I think there are ways to amend it. You know, if I was in the Tata group, I would have said, okay, how do I amend the relationship? Instead of sacking straight away, coming as a surprise, can I coach him in terms of, you know, if he's harsh on a few things, you know? So to me, this comes as a big surprise, you know, that because of a bad relationship and irrespective of what it did, you know, and the fact that, okay, it didn't go to Mr. Ratan Tata in terms of clearances, and you know, ultimately it boiled down to a lot of relationship issues, you know, which I think the group could have tried to make it different by coaching, by putting in some other person to improve relationships rather than just sacking him. To me, that's a sad part, you know. Mr.
Mariwala, do you think things have reached a point of no return, that rapprochement now looks impossible?
Impossible. There is no way it can have any approachment. And I think what he has said in the letter is more to put him in the right light and okay, that he was not at fault. I don't think he's looking at, even if they offered him back, I don't think he will join back. So
no, not join back. Whether they would climb down from a legal wrangle where very clearly there is going to be more dirt dug out and put in the public domain.
I don't know to what extent legal will serve the purpose. I think beyond the point, what he will claim, I don't know. I don't think, even if he wins and that he can he be chairman? I don't think he can be chairman.
No, actually, that was going to be my next question. You know, the Shapoorji Pallonji group has 18.5%. And going by the arguments that Mr. Mistry is making in that letter, under the oppression of minority shareholder clause of the Companies Act, he can make out a case that money from TCS, 88% of the profit of TCS came from there, instead of being given to me as dividend, is being ploughed in wasteful enterprises. Do you think he can make that case and thereby stop further expansions? He can hurt them economically.
I don't know, but he has, I mean, I think that, you know, the way the separation or the termination took place was not the right one, at least, I think, you know, especially from the Tata group. You know, they should have done a better job in terms of ensuring that either he was given a chance or there were some interventions taking place, as I said, in terms of reconciliation or in terms of coaching. And, you know, this coming as a bolt from the blue. Unless the issue is something which is related to fraud or integrity. If that is the issue, then I don't have any sympathy for Cyrus, you know.
You know, Mr. Mariwala, there's a specific instance that's mentioned in the letter about a board meeting that transpired. But, you know, related to that, Mr. Mistry says in this letter, allegedly, that these circumstances forced me to circulate a note on corporate governance in order to clarify the distinct roles of Tata Trust, Tata Sons board, and the boards of operating companies. This was a problem that you were alluding to. A quick comment on what I've just read out, sir.
this is exactly what I was saying earlier. At the time of his appointment, there should have been complete clarity in terms of what is the role of Tata Sons, what is the role of Tata Trust, and what is the role of the chairman, and what is the role of Mr. Ratan Tata, and what is the role of Mr. Cyrus Mistry. And it should have been put it down in writing so everybody is on the same page. And if it is left vague, then there are bound to be different interpretations in terms of how do we take it forward. And even if that happens, there are ways to resolve it in terms of putting in interventions like, coaching, or put a consultant to look at relationships and, mend them rather than just on one fine day ask him to go, Unless, as I said earlier, that if there was an integrity issue, then he should be out.
Yeah, but Mr. Mariwala, actually, it looks like he was given a very clear understanding that he would have a free hand.
Yes.
Witness this sentence. I was assured I would be given a free hand.
No,
the previous chairman was to step
back. One doesn't
back.
know what is the side of the Tata story, So unless one looks at that part.
No, he says actually the articles of association were amended after he joined, and the relationship of all these entities you mentioned, the board, the
I personally think there would have
trusts.
been a better way to resolve it rather than asking him to go without giving him a chance. That I don't think it's fair.
No, that's a fair point.
Yeah.
Shri.
Right. Mr. Mariwala, always a pleasure speaking with you, sir. Thanks very much for joining us. Well, Mohan Paraswaran, the story that Arun Giri broke for us here on CNBC-TV18, the former Solicitor General who was asked for his legal opinion by the Tatas before Cyrus Mistry was replaced, has reacted to the contents of the letter. He was one of the people contacted by Tata Sons before Cyrus Mistry was removed as chairman. Let's listen in to Mohan Paraswaran.
We do not know what is in store. Possibly it can go to courts, and if it goes to courts, it will be appropriately be defended by Tatas. I think they've already thought about all the aspects before taking the decision. I'll be advising on some of the correspondence which are going to be handed over to me. Therefore, these are all matters of confidence. But from what has become available in the public so far, it appears that there were some sort of uneasiness.
Well, that is Mohan Paraswaran, the former Solicitor General. Arun, confirming the story that you broke right here on CNBC-TV18. But Arun, you've been working the phones. What is the sense that you now get? Is this headed to court or not? Yesterday, we seem to have been getting an impression that neither side wanted to precipitate matters beyond a point. But in light of this letter, what is the sense that you get?
Shireen, absolutely explosive letter, no doubt about it. I've been reading it again and again to interpret it. Let me point out the 5-6 points that strike out for me in terms of legality, corporate governance. Mr. Mistry is saying that the business relating to his removal as chairman is invalid and illegal. This should be underlined in red letters. He is saying it is invalid, illegal, what we said 48 hours ago, but he's putting it in writing. Which means he believes he's been removed illegally, and therefore he believes he's still the chairman in some ways. That's very important. Number two, he's saying the board of directors have not covered themselves with glory. No explanation was given to him, which is again something we pointed out 48 hours ago. But he's saying that when he's saying board of directors have not covered themselves with glory, he's indicting the board of directors as well, which means that the directors did not do their fiduciary duty, is what is the interpretation there. Then he's talking of the Tata Group reputation, wherein he's bringing the larger aspect that the decision of the board of directors has harmed the reputation of the Tata Group, and hence in case this goes to a litigation, you're literally looking at a charge sheet that has been filed by Mr. Mistry. If we were to file a litigation, you literally know what is going to be the crux of that matter. I'll point out one or two other things. Inappropriate. It talks about the inappropriate interpretation of the articles of association. This certainly clearly gets down to a corporate law dispute. How do you interpret an article of association? How do you interpret certain contents of the articles? And then when you come to what really struck me is the damning indictment of his predecessor, Mr. Ratan Tata. And I think here is where a lot of questions are going to come back from the Tata Sons board and from the people representing the Tata Trust, and especially Mr. Ratan Tata. The way he has indicted Mr. Ratan Tata for his decisions, for his business decisions, be it the Singapore Airlines, be it Air Asia, be it Nano, Tata Power, whatever it is, questions will be asked. Holding 20% shares in Tata Sons, being on the board of that company, despite being a non-executive director, can he wash his hands off now? Also, so some of these big decisions that have been made, why have these points been raised today, and why were these points not raised earlier? Did Mr. Mistry, as chairman of Tata Sons, not have a fiduciary duty to, if he felt that some of these decisions were so illegal and were immoral and unethical? These are very serious allegations. Why, as a chairman of one of the biggest conglomerates in Asia, in the world, why were these not brought forward to the public, and why are they coming today? This itself is a serious corporate governance issue. This is absolutely a damning indictment of his predecessor.
I agree with you, Arun.
That, you know, that bringing it today in.
I agree with you. Let me bring in Saurabh Majumdar on exactly that point. Saurabh, you know, till 24 hours ago, we were talking about corporate governance issues in the manner in which Cyrus Mistry was replaced and high-handedness by the Tata Sons board and Ratan Tata. And today, as Arun was pointing out, questions are going to be asked of Cyrus Mistry as well. If you're calling certain actions, you're saying forensic reports suggested that there was illegality, there was fraud, then as chairman, what did you do?
Well, that's the exact point. I think, in fact, the letter throws up more questions than it answers in these matters. I mean, here is a gentleman who was the chairman of Tata Sons for no less than 4 years, almost. And if you are there at the helm for 4 years, and you have been groomed by Mr. Tata himself for 1 year before you took charge, I mean, you clearly have a sense of how the group functions, and there you have a full 4 years to understand the workings, the intricacies of a group of this size. If you were not convinced of a number of these decisions, as the letter now points out and makes allegations about, what prevented you, A, from actually throwing up these issues into the board repeatedly, questioning these actions in public or within the group if necessary, or putting in your papers and saying...
Or dissenting on record.
No, yeah. Shireen, I think you have to give a part of these, the benefit of doubt to Cyrus Mistry as well, Saurabh. You know, he's not exactly saying that AirAsia and Singapore Airlines decisions were mala fide decisions. He is only saying that I was told I will get a free hand, and repeatedly I was faced with fait accompli situations. So he is only saying that my freedom was curbed. Where the indictment comes, as you point out and as Arun is pointing out, is in this nano issue. That the nano gliders were kept alive only to feed a private company of Ratan Tata, and if there was actually a fraud of 22 crores in one of the AirAsia...
to my mind, that AirAsia fraud is what stands out. Even the point about the gliders, right? I mean, just read that sentence. Another challenge in shutting down Nano is that it would stop the supply of the Nano gliders in an entity that makes electric cars, in which Mr. Tata has a stake. It doesn't say that they did not shut it down because... It said, well, this is one of the factors which made it difficult.
So he will still wriggle out. But yes. I feel, you know, where Arun's and Saurabh's point comes is where there was a definite mention of fraud.
The AirAsia one.
Yeah, AirAsia one. The benefit, you know, he says that there's some 22 crore of expense.
Let's go.
I have a broader point just to interject.
I think he's making a larger point.
Yes, exactly. That's the point. I was making a broader point, not just about the fraud allegations, etc. If he was indeed a lame duck chairman, or he was feeling so over the last, you know, maybe several months, and if people were waiting for, you know, the entire board was waiting, and 2 members had to go out and all that, and there was in the letter, as it suggests, again, we don't know whether the letter, you know, there is a Tata view, I'm sure, which will come through, that there was another power center. What prevented him from either making it very clear that he cannot function in this way? 4 years. I repeatedly draw your attention to this point, that he was there for 4 years. Yes. So you mean to say he suffered this humiliation repeatedly, and he took it, and then he says, of course, at the end, and that I wanted to also draw your attention to, that, you know, he wanted to lay down a structure and all of that, but he now feels that he's going away with dignity, which is fine. But also, the interesting part is he took this for 4 years, and he never raised an issue until this thing has broken out. But also, the other important point, which we've not yet discussed in detail, is he also mentions a very interesting point that the Nomination and Remuneration Committee has actually lauded his performance. So, and those 2 of those members have also been those who have voted against him.
I mean, actually, there are 2 paragraphs in the letter which lists the achievement of Mr. Mistry. He says, I mean, the first one talks about how the group made several exits in
Right.
fertilizer business, UK steel operations, and of course smaller companies like logistics company, the logistics company. And the second para where he lists out his achievement is about the cash flows of the group and how they've grown at 31% CAGR under him, and how valuation of the group has also increased quite a bit. So
he's not taking the non-performance charge
Absolutely.
lying down at all. But ladies and gentlemen, we are going to have to take a quick break. We've been at it for about 30 minutes now. Quick break, but as you can see, this discussion is just getting started. Come right back as we continue to bring you details of the explosive 5-page letter written by Cyrus Mistry.